Crisis in Ferguson, 1 week later. On August 16th, a police officer with the Ferguson Police Department here in St. Louis, Missouri, shot and killed Michael Brown, an 18-year-old who was unarmed at the time and reportedly attempting to surrender with his hands raised. Since then, this once quiet suburb has been rocked by protests, riots, and looting. The Michael Brown killing and its aftermath confirm what many have long felt, that young black men are often the victims of police brutality in America, and that deadly brutality often goes unanswered. There have been calls for justice for Michael Brown, but so far, no charges have been filed against the cop who killed him, and the Ferguson Police Department has been less than forthcoming with what facts it has released. A vigil dedicated to Michael Brown's memory has been scheduled for every Saturday for the foreseeable future. Its location? Right across the street from the Ferguson Police Department.
Each other, and very few are actually from Ferguson. What I believe needs to happen is that we need the police to be in the communities like they were before, and not patrolling, but introducing themselves, because the same people that they want to protect don't know them. And
justices exist on all levels in every country. No matter how established there's always some, not only racial tension, but injustices with economically. And that in itself boils over to people feeling that they're not being heard. And that's what's happening here in St. Louis. And when I got home and saw on the news that this young man had died, and more importantly that people were taken to the streets, I immediately turned off my television, because those canines there and what I saw there was indicative of 1960s. And have we gone back instead of going forward?
But the peaceful protests during the day stand in stark contrast to what's been taking place during the nighttime hours along West Florissant Road. We have seen rioting and looting. At first, these were reported to be protesters, but in fact, these rioters were nothing more than bad people intent on taking advantage of the situation. One that turned dangerous Friday night as these opportunists broke into the very same stores that had just cleaned up from the first round of looting in the wake of the shooting.
Wow. Huh?
Due to these conditions, Missouri Governor Jay Nixon has declared a state of emergency and imposed a midnight to 5 a.m. curfew in the area.
And just last night, the courage and resolve of peaceful protesters who stood up against violent instigators, volunteers coming out, coming forward, even in this morning's steady rain, to help their neighbors pick up the pieces. As governor, I'm committed to making sure the forces of peace and justice prevail.
There were those that were opposed to the curfew being put in place. They vowed not to leave the now bombed out Quick Trip gas station that serves as a gathering spot for the protesters.
This is the police department. You are violating.
And indeed, tensions escalated when someone fired a gun in the vicinity just after the curfew went into effect, sending demonstrators, journalists, and police scrambling. After this incident, cooler heads prevailed and calm settled in going into Sunday morning. That day saw rallies held both supporting Michael Brown and even one supporting Officer Darren Johnson. Due to these brazen actions, the National Guard has been called in to restore some semblance of order to Ferguson. But the daytime protests are set to continue, because there can be no real order restored here, not until Michael Brown's killer is held to account.